Hello everyone, and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always. This is Go Again, a fabulous video cast covering the trading card game Flesh and Blood. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hello everyone, welcome to Go Again, a fabulous cast here on the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew, with you here as always.
And I'm Joshua.
And tonight we are talking Bravo Smash. Hello everyone, thanks for joining both of us yet again. Glad to be back here this week talking Bravo. So Josh, you're still playing IRL, at least for the moment. And last night you took Bravo to a tournament. So talk to me about it. Tell me about why tell me your story.
Well, we had played Bravo last week, or I had played Bravo last week when we had did some testing and some games for the channel, and it was the first experience I had with it, and I know there's a learning curve with any deck, but I saw that I think there was a different play style that I hadn't seen other people who play Bravo locally use that I wanted to kind of flesh out. So I asked one of the other local players to help me come up with an idea for a deck, and we kind of tweaked it, and I've been playing around with it, and it was a lot of fun. I ended up going 3-1. I lost to a wizard, but it ended up being a lot closer match than most wizard matches I think are, because they can just be so super effective at killing you whenever they want to or however they can. But it actually went pretty well, and I think I learned a lot about not only Bravo itself, but also this particular style of Bravo from those matches.
And so two quick questions. So this was Blitz, right?
Yes.
And then, okay, so that makes sense on the wizard favor then. And then did you go 1, 2, 3 and lose in the final, or did you lose somewhere along the way?
Yeah, I went 3-0 and met the wizard player at the final and lost.
I mean, that's pretty good showing. Cool, especially for your first. I know we jammed a couple, but that's for your first tournament playing him. That's pretty good. So, yeah, you mentioned to me that you had a lot of fun with it. So what are you enjoying about Bravo?
All right, so not an experienced player still, but the way I think a typical Bravo deck is designed to be played, and I don't know that there's a lot of difference between Blitz and Constructed. I think you play it probably the same way, is dominate a Guardian card if you can. Option B is play a Guardian card. Option C is swing with Thanatos. And what I wanted to do with this deck that I built and that I played last night, was to focus on the hammer exclusively almost. So the way the deck is designed is my first option is always swing with the hammer. There are exceptions. Obviously, if I have the right cards, then I can dominate a Spinal Crush, then that's what I'm going to do. But most of my lines of play were a situation where the goal was, and I was playing Anathos last night because I was kind of afraid to commit to the Sledge of Invalheim. Would be pitch 1 or pitch 3 rather, to get Tectonic Plating, so that if I do play a Guardian card next turn, it's discounted. And then that leaves me 2, which is not enough for Anathos, so I have to pitch a second blue, and then swing with Anathos. And the combo there works pretty well because most of the time the things that I'm pitching that are blue still cost 3. So I'll most of the time get to the 6 damage on Anathos, but it's not every time. And then the dream setup is to also have a pummel, which will eat up that 2 remaining resources at the end of the attack. And that seemed to work really great for most turns. And the turns where I'm not swinging with the hammer or not trying to set up the 6-point play on Anathos, it still left me the opportunity to play things like Blessing of Deliverance or Stonewall Confidence to get the auras out there, which cost 2. And one thing I think I was surprised the most about was the healing that you can get out of 2 Blessing of Deliverances and a Tome of Fyendal in your deck. On top of being very aggressive with defense reactions, it just is a very beefy deck.
Okay, so a couple of questions in for you. The first is, I was going to ask, what I had written down in my notes was, talk to me about setup turn strategy, right? Because that's kind of how I've seen Bravo in the past, is you almost have like an on-off turn, right? But it sounds...
Right. And that's what I like about this strategy is there's less of those, because you can almost always... Well, there's really no situation where you shouldn't be able to swing.
Yeah, and that's what it was sounding like to me, is that you don't have a setup turn. So are you still playing... Well, I mean, we'll bring up your deck in a second, I guess, but are you still playing the crushes and stuff like that, or?
Well, I took out the big one. I can't remember what it's called.
Crippling Crush is the big 11 one, right?
Yeah, I took that one out because it's red, it costs 7, and the way the deck is designed, I didn't feel like I needed that. So the big hitter in this one is actually Spinal Crush, because it costs 5. It still hits for 9, so it's actually just more approachable with the deck design than trying to get out the big Crippling Crush.
Yeah, the big one. I've got it on the screen right now, so no problem. Or I will once I go back and edit. So, okay, yeah, fair enough. So, and then the next one was, so if your first option is to swing with the hammer, even though the... what's the token you create? The Seismic Surge, right? Token?
Yeah.
So how often are you using that versus how often are you paying for that just to be able to set up your second pitch card?
You're often paying for it just to set up the getting the 2 cards that cost 3 or more, so that you can swing with Anathos to get the 6. But the way the deck kind of works is kind of a binary. Is if I don't have a pummel, then I'm more likely to actually play a Guardian card, because it's more value in an easier way than trying to set up Anathos. So more often than not, you're not getting a use out of it. I would say maybe half the time at best you're going to get the use out of it. But it is a neat trick to set up Anathos legally, because you can't overpitch to try to get to the 6.
Okay. And then so the basic strategy you said there, I guess not basic strategy. I guess you really only need 2 cards then minimum to make your turn happen, right? In terms of setting up for your defense. Or not setting, defending, and you know what I mean. Defending and then setting yourself up for your turn.
And that's where what I liked about the way this deck played was that with your 4 cards, I could pay for an unmovable or pay for a staunch response and still have the resources I need to try to get to the 6-point play on Anathos. So I was blocking 1 big hit and being able to swing for hopefully 6 each turn. And then if I didn't have to use staunch response or unmovable, then I have the 3rd card, which hopefully is a pummel, which will let me pump the attack, or to give me 3 cards to pay for a Guardian card with Dominate.
So then how often are you arsenaling then? Is it almost like an on-off turn with Arsenal?
Yeah, I think that's about how it worked out, because most of the turn I was using a lot of my cards either all on defense and all on offense, but there were a lot of turns, since I only needed 2 or 3 cards to get my attack off. If I didn't block or didn't need to block heavily, I was able to arsenal my defense reactions and draw up to a 4-card turn, which helped me kind of cycle through a lot of those blue pitch cards that I'd been playing to get back to cards I hadn't played yet that would set up a big dominate turn when I needed it, or to try to get back. Like I have the blue pummels in there because they pitch for 3. Obviously, they're not as awesome as hitting for 4 or 3 more, but even still, that pitching it early and then getting it back later to be able to sneak into more damage actually turns out to be pretty great.
I see. Yeah. So that your primary use of Arsenal was your defend reacts.
Right.
Interesting.
Or the other times I used it is if I had a turn where I had a lot of reds in my hand, I would use my 1 blue to just swing a basic attack, and then I'd try to arsenal a red just to get it out of my hand so that I can try to get blues into my hand to set up my normal turns. And then sometimes that would be a normal Guardian attack card, Spinal Crush being the big one, obviously. And that did allow me to save that for later if there was a turn where I had to block heavily and I couldn't do my tricks with Thanatos, then I could still just pay for a basic Spinal Crush, and it would be better than just swinging with Thanatos for 4.
I see. Okay, well, let's go in depth on the list then that you've provided us. So I'm showing it right now, and there aren't very many yellows, and it looks to me, so Blessing and Deliverance, Light and E-Strike, obviously, Fate Foreseen, Pummel, Sink Below, Spinal Crush, Staunch Response, Unruly. Yeah, so the majority of your red cards are your defend reacts. I mean, not all of them, obviously, but so you've got Blessing, you've got the Pummels, obviously, and then your big hit Crush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then everything else is defense.
I see. And then
or heal.
So you're running a full set of Pummels. Staunch Response, and then a Tome. Okay, yeah, I mean that makes sense.
And that's actually I like the Tome play. I haven't used Tome a lot in my experience just because I don't always play things that have a lot of easy access to go again, and so it could be a terminal card. But with Bravo, there's not a whole lot of great options for the foot slot. So actually, Mage Master Boots was what I was running specifically for Tome of Fyendal because of the ability to draw up to 4 or pitch, play Tome, break the Mage Master Boots, and still be able to do everything else you want to do in a turn. With Guardian is pretty huge.
I see. Well, that's an interesting little play. Okay. And then, yeah, blue is the bulk of your... I mean, not the bulk, it's about half of your deck-ish.
Yeah, and that's where it's a little surprising. There's only 2 attacks in red and blue, I think, the Light Strike and the Spinal Crush. Mm-hmm. A lot of the attacks are blue because we need to pitch to blue, and they need to cost 3 or more, which all the attacks do. But they also block for 3. So even if I need to just block with the standard card, which happens actually fairly infrequently with the way the deck plays, since I have so many defense reactions, to still being able to block for 3 works great with Stonewall Confidence, where they get buffed, and it saves cards in your hand that you would need to block with that turn because you're blocking for even more than usual, letting you set up your plays where you have to pitch for a lot to try to get either a dominate or a 6-point play off Thanatos.
Okay, very interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that list with us. The next question is then, what would you, after last night, what would you change? Or I guess, is this modified since last night? Is this the modified list? Is this straight up last night? And if so, what would you change?
This is what I played last night. What I'm considering changing is I'm a little unsure about the head slot. I don't think Helm of Isen's Peak, I think, can be good, but you have to either block with it or choose to get that 1 turn of extra cards. And I don't know when since I'm not playing the more expensive Bravo cards, when that would come in handy. And the Arcanite Skullcap is very cool for blocking, but if you're hitting hard and hitting consistently like this deck does, you're almost never getting the benefit of the block. So I'm a little unsure if there's something better that could be done in the head slot, or to keep the Arcanite Skullcap. And what I did do a lot of times is I would choose to go second and then take the first hit just so I can block for 2 later, because I'm starting off with the lower hit points. So the equipment, I think there's some. I'm not sure if the head slot stays the way it is. Obviously, tectonic plating is awesome. It's kind of a weird thought that I'm having here, is that I went with Anathos and I did a lot of these cool tricks to set up Anathos, but the way I was setting up Anathos was I was always pitching 2 cards, and most of the time that gives you a 6-point play, but not every blue card you pitch costs 3. So I'm wondering if I need to switch to Sledge, because there were very few turns that I only had a blue card to pitch to swing with Anathos for 4. But there were a lot of turns where I did the trick with paying for tectonic plating even though I didn't need it, and then just to try to get that extra card in my pitch zone. So I'm wondering if this deck may actually be better with just Sledge, because any 2 blues gets you 6 damage and leaves you with enough to play a pummel. Which leads to the other thought of maybe tectonic plating in this build isn't the best chess slot, which sounds weird because I think tectonic plating is one of the greatest legendaries, but with the exception of its being able to block for ultimately 3, you might get more use out of a Fyendal's Tunic than you would out of tectonic plating, because a lot of times the way this deck was playing, I was just burning those tokens for no reason. I mean, not no reason, just not for an optimized deck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my feedback on the Tunic, especially because you're talking Blitz, is that Tunic generally gets you 1 resource in a Blitz game, right? Sometimes you get the second one, but not often. So the Sledge is an interesting discussion, right? Because when I first saw the Sledge, it was very early on. They spoiled all the weapons, right, for a Crucible, I mean.
Right.
And when I first saw the Sledge, I thought that was going to be like a specific like alternate archetype for Bravo. And I don't think it's really gone anywhere, at least across the global scene that I've seen of. So I would be very, very interesting to me if you can make that work somehow. And it does sound like your deck lends to it a bit.
Yeah, now that the more I think about it, I think Anathos is the better option for a more traditional Guardian card playing format. But in this format where I'm mostly playing auras, defense reactions, and trying to pummel everything, I think Sledge might be the better way, just because there's a lot of turns where I have 2 blues to pitch, but they're not going to get me to 6 with Anathos anyways. So I can get there with Sledge. And in the turns where I don't have, I mean, the main disadvantage is if, for whatever reason, I just have a blue card and can attack with Sledge, that's kind of like a normal Guardian off turn anyways. It's not optimal and it's not awesome, but if I only have 3 left, then I can pitch and get a seismic token out, arsenal something if I have it, or can afford to do something with it, then great. But if not, then I go to the next turn. So there's still the potential for more to have off turns with it. I think more often than not, I don't think there were many times where I just pitched a blue and swung with Anathos for 4. I'm sure it happened, but it might have been a turn each game maybe, where I think the average with the Sledge and being able to get there automatically to the 6 lends itself to being the better option.
Well, and then I'm just making sure, yeah, it swings for 6, so I mean that's your max anyway, or that's what you're modified to I mean, the one counter argument to what you said, I'm not saying you're wrong at all, because I'm still processing it, right? But the one counter to what you
Oh, and I'm
said,
still learning, so
yeah, well, I mean, you said, if I take an off turn and I don't sling with a sledge, it's the same as taking an off turn for Guardian normally. And while that's true, the counter is that when you take an off turn for Guardian, you're generally coming for more than 6, or you're coming with it with
yeah,
Dominate, right? So
right.
that, I mean, I
That's
don't
very
know
true.
that that's a wrong statement. I just think that we have to put that in perspective, right?
Yeah, it's probably a false equivalency.
Yeah. But
That's fair
I'd be
enough.
very, very interested to see a sledge deck work, because, like I said, I thought it was going to be good, and then, I mean, it was very clear that, at least up to date, I've been wrong. Which, I mean, go figure.
Right.
But yeah, that's very
Well, I do
interesting.
think next week I will try the sledge and see if I feel like it plays better. From what I've seen, I think it could be better, but there is definitely that chance where your cards get eaten up by various effects, or you're having to block in a certain way. You don't always have the best cards to block with, so you end up not having what you need to be able to swing with the sledge, which really can ruin your turn. Um, but I'm hoping with more play testing, I will see that doesn't happen as much as you might fear, and it turns out that getting the guaranteed 6 when you do swing helps out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking forward to, I mean, and I mean, worst case scenario, I mean, it's Blitz, so you can show up with both. So worst case scenario, you get pounded round 1 and 2 or
Right,
something, you can switch. I mean, at that point, you're in the losers bracket anyway, but you can always switch and make sure you don't have a completely horrible night, right?
right, and that's why when I put the deck list together, I put everything on there with the thought in mind of you might want to try Sledge, you might want to play Anathos. That you might face a wizard, you're going to want to have your arcane stuff up. Um,
Yeah, I mean, fair
just so
enough.
people could see kind of where I'm thinking about what my sideboard would be. And I think right now my sideboard's probably going to stay the same. Um, I will say against Wizard, Tectonic Plating is not the greatest thing to have because you're not wanting to burn cards um, in order to pay for it, because then you're having to burn another card because most of your things cost 3 or more. So you're committing 2 cards just to try to get Tectonic Plating off and attack.
Or do you have the robe in
So
there? You don't have the robe in there.
I don't currently, but I do think that maybe taking out the helm of Eisen's Peak and putting in the robe to give you that option. I think with Wizard, having the 3 null rune is absolutely necessary, and in the off chance that you end up at a disadvantage towards the end, uh, with having less hit points, than being able to get to 6 arcane barrier with the skull cap. Actually, Guardian can survive pretty decently, because if a lot of your cards are blue and you can afford to pitch 6 to block an attack and then still pitch another blue to swing with Anathos, then you're putting pressure on the wizard and staying alive,
Well, don't all
which is kind
don't
of
all those have Arcane 1 though? Or
right. So all the null rune ones have Arcane 1, but Arcanate Skullcap, if you have less hit points than them, it goes to a barrier
oh,
3.
barrier 3.
So you
Okay,
have a
yeah. So you could
combined
pitch 6
Arcane
then.
barrier
Okay, you
6.
could pitch 6 then. Okay, okay.
And with a blue heavy deck like Bravo, you actually have some staying power with being able to have blues to pitch for.
Huh. Well, I would imagine. I mean, I think you're probably going to get a shot at it, because I'd imagine the guy who won last week's probably not going to change much, right? So, I mean, but who knows, right?
Right. I will. I'll know his little tricks now. I think I have a better shot at it next week. But I think obviously in Blitz Wizard is really
Right.
strong. I think Guardian has a chance if you have the right setup and know that you might face Wizard. It certainly helps. So we'll see how it goes next week.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, yeah, I think that's about it for today. We kind of ran through the list, and it sounds like we've got a planned follow up. Look at how well we plan, man. Um,
Yeah, I'd love to test it out. If everyone has any ideas, obviously I'm open to it. Still new to Bravo, but I kind of like this hammer build, and not having to rely on a lot of cards and taking turns off and trying to get the dominate play every
mhm.
turn. So we'll see if this ends up being viable.
Yeah, well, and you know what? Maybe you're learning more for when, what is it, March, the new set comes out. Maybe we get a new Guardian who has a different ability.
Yeah.
So, all right, it's all learning. Okay, well, cool. Well, I think that'll do us for tonight. Thanks for joining and sharing your experience. It's great to be able to talk to somebody who gets to play Fab IRL these days. So,
Right.
you guys are few and far between for sure. All right, but yeah, I think that does it. So thanks again, Josh, for joining. And if nothing else, y'all, go. Oh, I almost forgot. I did want to do our shout outs. So Dice Commando, we get our product from Gongai Games, sealed product from Gongai Games. They are definitely in stock with the great worldwide restock for all the unlimited stuff. And we get our singles from Fab Foundry, Local Boy. Please make sure to check him out as well. And if you do go over there, you can use the the link provided below, and the channel actually gets a kickback. So that's a way to help support the channel. So with those advertiser shout-outs said, again, thank you, Josh, for joining, and go Commando.
Go Commando.